Your girl HP is on her mark, so get set ready.
On your mark, set, go.
Oh yeah, make we chat about it. What if I said, make we chat about it. Or on left, make we chat about it. Check and feel at the topic. Oh, make we chat about it. Latest news, make we chat about it. All your views, make we chat about it.
Check and feel chat for set. With your girl HP.
Oh my God. Good evening, everyone. Wherever you are tuning in from, good evening. Whichever continent you are coming from tonight, good evening. And, boy, I tell you, sometimes things have a way of happening when, you don't expect it. They call it unforeseen issues. So I just had some of that. So we were to start earlier, but I had some technical difficulties and everything changed. So we're now on a different link, everything, but of course the show must go on. And of course, I want to apologize for not being here last week due to the hurricane. I was affected by the hurricane last week, Hurricane Milton. So I wasn't able to broadcast last week. But nonetheless, we are back here tonight. And of course, I don't know if you're as excited as I am, but we are back here tonight. And of course, we are going to be looking at the legacy of one Mr. Herb McKenley. And without any more talking, I'm just going to bring in his son. We're putting a spin on tonight's show. It will be his son who will be telling this story. His son, Herb McKenley Jr. will be telling this story. So guys, let me bring my guest in. Mr. McKenley Jr., welcome, Herb. Oh, how are you?
Hi, Heather. Hi. Hello, everyone.
Man, that little glitch that we just had, but thank God we were able to fix that and we are here and hopefully everybody will be able to join us on this side. Herb Jr., we're here to talk about the legacy of a great man, your father, Mr. Herb McKenley Sr. How much do you know about your father's earlier days as a little boy living in Clarendon, Pleasant Valley, Clarendon?
Uh, most of it anecdotal. He would talk about the playing cricket. And in fact, he was a bowler and a fast bowler. And it was on the cricket pitch. I guess somebody saw him running and he looked fast. But his parents, particularly his dad, who was a doctor, was not enamored with sport. But he got so good that he was offered scholarships. And as the story goes, when the Jesuit priest from Boston College, which is where he went originally, came and offered him a scholarship, his dad, my grandfather, said, "So let me get this straight. You're going to give him a scholarship to run?" It was, to get an education to run, it was outside his.
But before we get there, before we even get to his scholarship and him going overseas and stuff, do you remember, can you recall which basic school he would have gone to, which primary school in Clarendon?
No, that he never. I'm sure somewhere along the line he did, but
yes, he did.
Yeah. He spoke a lot about the Calabar days, being enamored with Arthur Wint. In fact, that was his first hero, because Arthur went to Calabar as well.
Right, exactly.
And, he spoke about being seeing Arthur Williams come back with the Jamaica uniform on, and it was
Mm-hmm,
just
mm-hmm.
that's what lit his fire.
He
Um,
was born, your father was born in Clarendon in a community called Pleasant Valley. Have you
yes,
ever been there? Have you ever visited the community?
yeah, absolutely. He took us there every summer, and we, my sisters and I, spent the entire summer down there for I don't know 10 years. Rural Jamaica. It was, in
Mm-hmm.
fact, I think we went to school down there a couple of years. The whole thing, outhouse, no lights, no water. It
Mm-hmm.
was good. It was good for us. Of course, I didn't like it at the time, but because everything was just rural, you know, in the truest sense of the word.
Clarendon.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I spent time down there.
Indeed, indeed.
Mhm.
Before he graced the track, or let's say the before he graced the 61 Red Hills Road, I'm not sure how many people know what is at 61 Red Hills Road, but we will tell them. Before he graced the property or the compound or the campus of 61 Red Hills Road, do you know if he had any form of indication that he wanted to run? Was it in him in his earlier days?
Um, I think it was at Calabar that
He was discovered.
he was yeah he made up his mind that's what he wants to do. Um, you know, it kind of gelled right there at Calabar. It was prior to that it was not. It was he knew he could run fast, but it wasn't. But I think Calabar with where they had the structured sports days and
Mm-hmm.
championships and you know it's where it
What
really.
was what was the motivation that led him to Calabar?
Uh, Heather, I don't know. I'm not sure why he came to Calabar. Um,
But he liked it there, though.
oh yeah, I mean, listen, there a few things that he would give an arm and leg for, and Calabar is one of them. He
That's for
told,
sure.
yeah, so we can get into it a little later in the show, but
Mm-hmm.
he told me he never took a dime from him when he was coaching them. I remember when I came to Calabar in '69, I think. Um, that was his first year back as a coach. And of course, Calabar back then was the perennial
Mm,
dog house. I mean,
indeed.
you wear your people. The Calabar boys would take their epaulets off when they go in when they leave the school compound. They took their epaulets off because they didn't want to be associated with Calabar because we were just nothing. You know, um, but
And no Calabar is in track and field is the second winningest boys champ school.
yeah, and it started back when I was on the team. Boys champs was 2 days, Friday and Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
and uh boy have they come a long way. but
5 days.
but the number you wore on your jersey indicated your finishing place the year before in the
Interesting.
yeah. So I mean we were wearing some large double digit numbers when we came to boys champ, but as we progressed in the early 70s up until 76, our numbers starting in 75 we were number two. We finished second to KC in 75, and of course we won it in 76, my
Mm-hmm.
my senior year. And man, that was just a glorious pinnacle for
You have a
us.
very good memory. You're correct. Yes.
Yeah, and I think we won it 5 or 6 years consecutive after that.
And your
uh,
dad was coaching at that time.
oh yeah, Oh,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
before we get to your dad's coaching, I'm
Mhm.
going to ask you a little bit about his before we go any further, let us just welcome each and everyone. Guys, welcome again. Thank you for being so patient. You know, I had some technical difficulties earlier, so we had to change the link. So if you know anybody, just send it out the new link to them, and it is also on Facebook. I want to welcome 1972 Olympian who is with us, Yvonne Saunders, Vonnie M. She was on the 1972 Olympic team. Also, Ruth Williams Simpson, who was coached by your dad, who she made 3 Olympic teams. She's also here with us tonight, and she's
Yes.
saying, "Good evening, everyone." Special good evening to
Hi, Ron
Herbie.
and Ruth. Hi, guys.
Yes,
How are you?
and
I
we
remember them.
also, yes, Ruthie, and we also have the great one, Lily Hodges, who was
Wow.
also a part of that team. So the Olympians are rolling out and they're here. Kerry Ann Phillips, good night to you. Monica Lewis is also here, and she is saying, good night and happy to be on another dynamic episode. Thank you very much, guys, for being here. Now, let us go back to Herb Jr. about his dad, Herb Sr. Before we go back to your dad coaching and stuff, did your father share any of his early days track and field stories with you guys? Like, what was the influence? What was the motivation? What got him into track and field?
Um, like I said, he was discovered on the cricket because of his speed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he was inspired by Arthur Wint. Um,
Okay.
he made mention of seeing him in his uniform, and it just made an impression, a stunning impression. You know, he would talk about that forever, and that's when it solidified his mind that he wanted to. That's what he wanted to do. So, yeah, that was the genesis of his mindset to run and represent Jamaica. Um, at
Awesome. And they're not far apart in age. They're just
no,
like two
no,
years apart.
yeah, yeah. So, but
Outstanding.
that's what fueled his fire.
Outstanding. Outstanding.
Mhm.
From Calabar to the University of Illinois. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
University. Yes.
eventually ended up at Illinois, but before that, he was at Boston College.
Tell me about his university journey in track and field and stuff. Whatever you know, share
Yeah.
it with us.
Okay, so he spent 2 years at Boston College, uh, and he did. You know, he wasn't didn't really pan out to what his expectation. He was supposed to come home, he said, between his sophomore and junior year, but decided to stay in the States to compete in the summer. And his then coach, Leo Johnson, saw him run at a summer meet and asked him if he wanted to come to Illinois to run, and that he would give him a scholarship. And um, by then, Leo's name it was a legend. I mean, Leo Johnson was coaching legend at Illinois. Everybody knew who he was. So yeah, he accepted it and came to Illinois. And he would tell me that when he stepped off the plane in Champaign, it was like rural, rural.
Bush.
Yeah,
Bush.
yeah. So, but he made the best of it. He was four-time NCAA champion. I think that's where he broke the world record for the first time in the 400.
In the 400,
Yeah,
yes.
under Leo Johnson's coaching. Um,
Yes, he was a superstar at University of Illinois in the 1940s.
but Leo Johnson was instrumental in that. Leo Johnson is the one really, really put it in his mind that he could be this great runner, because prior to that he had, he was just languishing. He told us the story that Leo came to him one day and said, Herb, how would you like to be Olympic champion and world record holder? And
Wow.
yeah, that was the question. And before he could say a word, Leo said, don't answer me now. Think about it and come back and tell me in a couple of days. This is a story that he's telling us from. And he thought about it, came back and said, yeah, I would like to do that. I would like to,
Wow. Just like
and
that.
just like that. That he put that bug in his ear about being the best. And prior to that, it did, running was just a means to an end. It was not
Like it is for many, many Jamaicans, many
yeah.
of our athletes. That's how
Yeah.
they started out. It's
But
yeah.
he believed in Leo so much, because right after when he came back to Leo and said, yeah, I want to do it, and Leo said, okay, are you willing to work for it? And prior to him going on that training regimen, he had no clue about training, what hard training was. But as they say in Jamaica, he busted his ass.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he had great respect and belief in Leo, and I think that respect for Leo, plus coupled with the hard work, is what propelled him into that higher level of running. I mean, back before he met Leo, he was running 48 seconds for the 400. I mean, that's a high school time, even back then. So
We're talking about over 70 years ago.
sure.
So that
Sure.
would have been a good time.
Well, it was mediocre.
Yes.
It was a mediocre time. You're right. Even back then, with the cinder track and the,
Mm-hmm. And the
but
clay track and all
right,
those things.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, but of course he shared the story of when he broke the world record. It was the NCAA in Salt Lake City,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, I don't know, damn near 8,000 feet above sea level. And they got the Illinois team got their, I don't know, 3 or 4 days before the meet to get acclimatized to the altitude.
To the high altitude.
He told me that the first day he jogged a mile and couldn't do it. And yeah, and then the next day, Leo would say, hey, it's gonna come, don't worry about it. They did a workout, felt a little bit better. And then the day of the meet, he ran his heat, he won his heat.
Mm-hmm.
But he said he struggled. There was the other guy, I think his name was Bowling, I can't remember the name, but he said he saw his heat, and he said the guy looked so good. It was, how I guess you're a runner, you understand sometimes the psychology of it.
Oh
And
yes, yeah.
yeah, he thought for sure that, man, I don't know what I'm getting into here. But when you're ready and you have the frame of mind of you just everything else goes, and so he ran the world record. He said the night before he broke the world record, he had a dream, and he said he dreamt about it. This might be shocking. I'm sure some of these Ruth and Yvonne probably heard the story. But yes, he woke up in a cold sweat. His pajamas were wet. He dreamt that he broke the world record.
He was running in his sleep.
Yeah, and this is one of the stories he uses to tell us how important the mind is to achieving anything or any great thing, to believe in yourself to the point where you can actually see it. He would emphasize that, Heather. Um, to believe in yourself so much,
Yes.
whatever that
Mhm.
task is at hand, that you actually see yourself doing it. It's one of the things he preached.
And I'm going to play a little clip in a little bit from Daniel England saying that same thing. But before we go any further, let us just say welcome to others who are coming in. Guys, if you want me to see your comments and read them, you have to come over to YouTube. I just want to welcome Dorothy Scott Genius, also another Olympian, Reimar's Track Club down in St. Mary. Welcome. Regina Montague, outstanding champs
I
girl
remember
from
that name.
Titchfield
Yeah,
High
I
School.
remember her.
For Oh, you know Regina. Well,
I
Regina
remember the
Montague.
name. Yeah, I remember her.
Yes, yes. Formerly of Titchfield, outstanding junior athlete for Titchfield High School, and of course, we also have Lilith, and they're all saying, "Hello, Herbie." I like that name, Herbie. And also, I want to say welcome to Nia Shea Page, and she said. Rabalak, and also Tony Phillips is saying great conversation, and also I want to say welcome to the McKenley family who is watching, your siblings. And also, I want to say a special welcome to the widow, the widow of Mr. McKinley, who is also watching us. Good night, everyone.
Hi
Good
guys.
night. Mrs. McKinley, good night to everyone. Daniel England is also here and he is saying, greetings from Jamaica. He is in Jamaica showing off. But let us continue. Let us segue into competing for country. Your father made the first Olympic team that Jamaica as a country was competing in. Jamaica was competing in its first Olympic Games as an independent country, and your father was among that team. He was on that team to London. It was actually in London after World War II. For the youngsters who don't know about World War II started 1939, and of course it interrupted the 1940 and 1944 Olympic Games. But when it was back in 1948, Jamaica was there making a lot of noise. What was some of the stories that how did your father describe his first Olympic Games, if he did?
He talked about Herbert McDonald, being instrumental and very gave the Jamaican contingency some kind of respect. He was the manager of the 48 team. Of course, he talked about most of all his race. What I remember, he was the odds-on favorite to win the 400.
He sure
Um,
was.
yeah, he
I want you to tell me what he told you about that story with himself and Dr. Arthur Wynne. How did they pull off that quinella?
well, he was supposed to win that race. He was overconfident. His strategy, um, when he ran the 400, and he would tell me to run it the same way, is to just run the first 200. But you run relaxed. You don't run it like but you run relaxed. But his strategy was just to go out and just run that first 200
Hard.
and hard. But you know, um, he was overconfident, and he was a sprinter. So he had 200, 100-meter speed, um, and he went out and came off the turn in the lead, and just then he started tiring, and you heard Arthur Wynn coming, And I think Arthur
Those
got him.
long legs
Yeah,
coming.
yeah, he got him about 5 meters from the finish,
Yes.
and he was crushed. Um, yeah, he was crushed. He made light of it, um, but yeah, I mean, listen, to um, Bud Greenspan, the great um, documentary guy, made a film about him, and it showed him on the when they won the relay in '52, 4 years later, with getting that medal, and he was the happiest man on that podium, holding that medal. So that gold medal meant so much to him.
And before we even get to 1952, 1948, and for those of you who don't know this story, I know it like the back of my hand. It was a quinella for Jamaica with Dr. Arthur Wint and Mr. Herb McKenley, and both of them relegating the United States to third. Herb Jr., Herbie, the heartbreak came in the 4x4, 1948. Jamaica was the team to beat. We had everything going for us with Herb McKinley, Arthur Wynne, George Roden, Les Ling. But the heartbreak came on the third leg when not your dad, when Mr. Arthur Wynne pulled up on the third leg. How did your father talk about that heartbreak of a gold medal for Jamaica?
Interesting question. Yeah, yeah. He was supposed to anchor, and he's watching Arthur Wint run the third leg, and he's on the back stretch, and he's waiting for his turn to get the stick. And of course, the tragedy happened, and he said he was of two minds whether to run without the stick, which was, I'm not sure why.
He would have been disqualified.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the team was already out of it,
Yeah.
or to go over to Arthur and to console him, because it was insult to injury. I mean, he's hurt. They knew they were the favorites, and he let down. It's one thing when you're running an individual race, but
Yes.
he felt like he let down the team. Arthur Wint was a man of great character, and so he was terribly disappointed. But Daddy went over and just offered him. He just tried to let him know that, hey, it's all good, and as they say in today's parlance.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a part
So
of the game.
yeah.
Yeah, that was heartbroken. I watched that afterwards, and I was broken. But before we go any further, I just want to welcome some more people who are rolling in. I want to welcome 2000 and 2004 Olympian and Olympic champion Tana Lawrence, who just joined us. Mia Golden is also here. She's saying, you're looking great, brother. Tony Phillips is saying, man,
It's
he's
my
a
sister.
splitting image. He's a splitting image of his daddy. Tony, when I saw him, it was the first thing I said. I said, man, you look like your dad. Hi, Marlene Green.
I take
Marlene
that
Green
as a
is,
compliment. Thank you.
yes, yes, you are the splitting image of your dad. Hey, Marlene Green, welcome. Another Olympian is here. I don't know if you know this name, Herbie. Debbie Byfield. She was also
Oh
a
yeah, I
member.
remember Debbie. She
Oh,
was
you
my.
know Debbie. But you know
Oh yeah,
all these ladies, Herbie.
I
You
remember
know
Debbie. She went to Excelsior. She good looking girl.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
she went to Excelsior indeed. Excelsior, outstanding athlete, and also a member of the 1972 Olympic team. And Regina is still here. Ruth Williams is still here. She's saying, hello, Beverly. This must be a proud moment for you to listen to Herbie articulating Herb's story. It is outstanding, outstanding. And again, I have to say, a special welcome to Mrs. McKinley, the widow of Mr. Herb McKenley, who is joining us tonight. She is watching. I'm going to wave to her on in her living room or wherever. But going back to Herbie, 4 years later, 1952, this time in Helsinki, the Olympic Games was held in Helsinki. Another Quinella from Jamaica, and your father again was a part of another Quinella. History, rewriting history. What was going on there? I mean, did they plan this? This time though, guys, this Quinella was with George Roden. So it was George Roden for gold and Mr. Herb McKinley again for silver. How did your dad talk about this race again, knowing that he was the man to win, and again he came in second?
Well, leading up to the games, he told me that he was not in the best shape, and I think he was ill at one time, flu, something like that. I'm not sure. A week or two before the game, so he was not in the best shape. And Herbert McDowell was the manager again, and he convinced him to put him in the 100 meters,
Which he did.
which he did, just to get sharp is the word he used, which I understand that as an athlete, the 100, when you're speed work, you get in order to run fast, you got to run fast. So yeah, you put him in 100. It was just that. That was it. So in 100, I think there are 3 or 4 rounds.
Yes.
And
At that time it was 4 rounds. Yeah.
and I think he just said, hey, I might make the second round, but he just wanted to get sharp. Lo and behold, he makes the final, and he's the favorite to win. And it went to his head again, got a bad start, and he finished second. Up until that time, they said it was the closest 100 finish in history. But anyway, so about the question with the 400, he abandoned his regular strategy of going out fast, and this time went the opposite way, and went out in 22 seconds or something like that, whereas before in 48 he went out in 20 point something. And Roden had the outside lane, and Roden took advantage of that. He couldn't see anybody, but he ran that third 100. He ran that third 100 when Daddy was just, running within himself, and came off the turn. He was 5 meters in front, couldn't catch him. I think he made it up. They ran the same time, 44.5, 44.9, but again, he lost the race.
Yes, he did. And this is the thing. I've heard a lot of coaches, and I was told this as a little girl, when I was running, always run your race. Stick to your game plan, and hopefully it will work before you. But you know something? Nonetheless, we got another Quinella. History again for Jamaica. Your father, he is a legend because he's a pioneer. You name it, his legacy is just outstanding. And before we go any further, let us just look at some of your father's achievement. I don't know if you look at it in details, and I like to do this part, but your father is a graduate of University of Illinois. Let us look at his career on the track. 1952 and 1948, Olympic champion. 1950 at the 1952 games, he was the Olympic champion in the 4x4. He was the world record holder for the 4x4 because they won that 4x4 in record time. He won double silver. Listen to this now, guys. Mr. Herb McKinley went to the 1952 Olympic Games, and I have it in a quiz for Herbie Jr., but I'm going to say it now because he might forget by the time we get to the end. Mr. Herb McKinley ran the 100 meters, he ran the 200 meters, and he ran the 400 meters. Guys, He won a silver medal in the 100 meter and the 400 meter, and he got to the semifinal of the 200 meters. And of course, he won gold in record time in the 4x4. At the 1948 games, he won silver in the 400 meters and, of course, set a world record in the 400. He is the first, no other athlete has done this or achieved this, to win Olympic medal in the 100 meters and the 400 meters. And I said earlier, he did that in 1952. Mr. McKenley is the only athlete in the history of the Olympic Games, I swear, to run 1, 2, and 4 at an Olympic Games. Who does that? Now, this is what you call legacy. And what he did, he set the bar so high that I have not seen any other athlete attempt to do anything like this. 1951 at the Pan Am Games, he won bronze medal in the 100, the 200, and the 400 meters. At the 1950 CAC Games, he won 2 gold medals in the 200 meters and the 400 meters, and he won 2 silver medals in the 100 meters and the 4x1 relay. In college, he was just unstoppable in college. Between 1945 and 1948, he was 8 times Big Ten champion, and he was 4-time NCAA champion in the 220 yards, which is the 200 meters, and also the 400 meters. In 1947, he had the world best times in the 100 meters, the 200 meters, and the 400 meters. Who does that? Nobody else but this man. In 1954 to 1973, of course, he retired before that and came back to Jamaica, and he was coaching, and he was very instrumental also in the J3A. I read some articles. Every article I read, it said he was once the J3A president. I'm not sure if he was actually the president at one point, but I've read articles that said he was the president. Some of his awards, 2004, he was given the Order of Merit. Order of Distinction. 2017, he was inducted in the University of Illinois Hall of Fame. I'm going to stop right there for now. This legacy is unmatched. Herbie, how did your father react to everything that he accomplished in the sport that we love so much?
Listen, the thing about Dad is that he was always authentic, and humble. He would not. My wife told me a story as we were preparing for this, which I didn't know about. when I had my first daughter, they took a trip to Jamaica, and on the way back, they got to the airport, and they got to customs to check back into, and he wanted to walk my wife to the airplane, and the lady said, no, sir, you can't. Of course, she didn't know who he was. And my wife was standing there thinking, I wonder if he's going to say who he is, and she would just let him right in. But he never did it. He just...
Very humble.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy, his character is what... he tells me stories about guys that he's changed their lives. One guy, he told me, he couldn't remember the guy's name, but the guy was a mediocre half miler at Calabar. couldn't break 2 minutes. But every year this guy would say, Mr. Mark, get me a scholarship, I mean, Daddy would tell me that he's out of his mind. How are you going to get a scholarship, can't break 2 minutes? But anyway, because the guy was knocking on his door so many times, he worked out some junior college thing in Arizona or somewhere. Anyway, the guy went over and made the best of it. I mean, got to be decades later. He's walking through an airport in that section of the world, Arizona somewhere, and he hears somebody say, "Mr. Matt," yelling across the airport. And turned, looked, saw somebody coming, didn't recognize who he was. And the guy said, "You don't remember me, do you?" He said, "No." And he told him the story. This guy graduated from college, had a family, and he said he owed it all to him. And, you know, there are instances of people telling me this, virtually the same thing, where, you know, their lives were changed because of things he did for them.
Yes, I've heard that
So
story over and over.
yeah, I think his legacy, more than on the track, he gave back so much. Love Jamaica, love Calabar,
Yep.
love Jamaica. He would say, when you go to America, you're nothing but a number. Come back to Jamaica. Come back to Jamaica where you're somebody. That I mean, he probably died with those words on his mouth.
And I totally agree with him. But let us jump back to 1952 a little bit. Let us look at that 4x400-meter relay with your dad, Arthur Wint, George Roden, Leslie. I heard, I don't know if it's true, I heard that your father said Arthur Wint is not going to run the third leg this time. He's going to start the relay. I'm not sure how, but I've heard it. I've heard commentators said it that your father said Arthur Wynn should start that relay. And of course, that was what happened. But that relay, the setup of that relay was from Mr. Arthur Wint to Leslie to your dad to Mr. Roden. But what I want to ask you, were these guys buddies? I know that your father and Arthur would have been maybe friends because they're just 2 years apart. Both of them went to Calabar, even though Mr. Arthur did some time at Excelsior himself. He did a few years at Excelsior. But how did he talk about the relationship or his teammate, those three gentlemen?
Only insofar as not much about Les Lang and George Roden and Arthur Wynn, only insofar as competition. But he said that they were great guys insofar as character and so forth. He told me the story about when for the final of the 400 in 52, how when McDonald walked into the locker room to tell them their respective lanes, and they were sitting there, and he said, "Herb, you got lane whatever," and he said to Roden, "You got lane," and he said, "Oh, I know what lane I got." And so it was a kind of cat and mouse. He told me that George Roden was a pretty confident guy. So beyond that, I'm not sure if they were actual buddies off the field, but you know, obviously they're from the same country, same fraternity, same events. They had to share something. But
they were oozing with confidence based on what I've read and heard other commentators said, because of course the same four men from 1948 who were the favorites came back 1952 and they were the favorites, and of course we won a Quinella again, and of course Mr. Arthur Wynn won a silver medal again in the 800 meters. So I can understand the level of confidence, but man, they came back with a vengeance. Did your father ever talk about the race itself?
Yeah, he spoke about being down 15 or so meters when he got the stick. And as he got the stick, he told me that for some reason he thought they were going to blame him for the because I mean, you're 15 meters down in a world class competition. The race is over for all intents and purposes. I mean, I've never seen that kind of lead dissipate at the Olympic level. The U.S. guy was the guy who won the hurdles, the 400 hurdles. So he
Yes.
was no slouch. But he said in his mind, they're going to blame me. But then he said, the words of Leo Johnson came back to him about making up a little at a time. And he ran the greatest relay leg, they say, in Olympic history. He ran a time that was off the charts. The world record right now is 43 flat, and he ran a time that was almost a second and a half faster than the world record then. So if you extrapolate it right now, it'd probably be 41 something.
Yes, he ran the fastest.
He ran a crazy time.
Yeah.
That leg led to the gold medal. So
yes, he ran the fastest time, and I'm going to tell you what the split is in a little bit because I have it here. But
I know what it is.
He ran the fastest time in that entire 4x400 meter relay, and it was amazing what he did. It was just amazing what the entire team did and the work that they put in and how they gelled and everything. But did he ever talk about running barefooted or anything like that? Or he was a superstar, so he was always in shoes?
Well, no, back in his early days in Clarendon, he would talk about running barefoot, and it was no big deal. I remember doing that when I was back there, and it was no big deal. But
that's
no,
what we do.
Not when he was running track at that level. He was never. No, he never ran barefooted.
Do you know what led to his retirement from competition? What motivated him or influenced or inspired him to retire?
He spent a year in Australia on the professional circuit in 53, I think. And of course, once you did that, you gave up your amateur status. You couldn't compete in the Olympics again. But it was not the same. It was not the same. Furthermore, at the 52 games, he was 30 years old. I mean, for him to achieve what he did at that age back then, now it's you can run. I mean, look at Shelly Ann. Damn near 40 years old.
Will be 38 in 2 months. Yeah.
And she's running 10.5, 10.6. So, but back then, at 30 years old, you shouldn't even be on the track. So it was time for him and time for him to get back and to Jamaica anyway.
Wow. Let us now talk about your dad as a coach. He came back to Jamaica, and of course, he was coaching the Jamaican team, or he was coaching a lot of our athletes. Let us talk about him a little bit as a coach before we even get to Calabar. Tell me a little bit about him as a coach.
You mean his what?
Before you go, let us just touch on something a little bit. Ruth Williams Simpson, who is a 3-time Olympian, 1972, 76, and 1980. She spoke about Mr. Herb McKenley as her coach. Let us just hear quickly what she had to say. She mentioned him in an interview.
Okay, cool.
McKenley, yes.
Wow. So your coach was the great Mr. Herb McKenley.
Herb McKenley, yes.
Wow. What a story. Mr. Herb McKenley, Olympic champion. Wow. And I like how you talk about Mr. Herb McKinley. I've heard quite a few athletes talk about him, and he was just one of the best that we have seen. I know that you mentioned Mr. Herb McKinley and how instrumental he was. Who was the sponsor back then for track and field? Was it Puma, Nike, Adidas?
So we were Adidas because Herb had contact with Adidas. Yes.
So Mr. Herb McKinley at that time was the man
Yes, 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 yes,
in
yes.
terms of organizing and setting up things for athletes. Tell me a little bit about his administrative skills as it relates to.
So then Herb was not even he was just a member of the J3s. He was never a president, a vice president, or anything like that. He just gave his talent to the athletes.
Wow, beautiful. So he basically was just volunteering.
Volunteer, right? He was just volunteer to help you to develop your talent. He had an eye for it, and when he saw, he would he volunteered. And I'm telling you,
Indeed.
carry you home. So
Yeah.
when training is finished, sometime you all squeeze up in his Benz and carry you home wherever you live in Kingston.
It seemed as if he was giving of himself in so many different ways as it relates to our track and field.
As it relates to track and field, right.
Wow, beautiful. And that was Ruth sharing her experience with your dad. She even shared in that same interview that before she started running the 400 meters, she was running the sprints. And your dad said to her, Ruth, if you want to go to the Olympic Games, switch to the 400. And she listened to him, and she was able to be on 3 teams for Jamaica. Your thoughts?
Yeah, he was able to identify talent, and he was able to identify specifically what event that talent would be optimized. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised about that. For Ruth, she had that long loping stride. I remember Ruth running. The 400, obviously, she was tall. Was a perfect event.
He seemed to have a good eye for talent. He can look at you and said, this is the event for you, and of course you are able to do. Did he enjoy coaching as much as he enjoyed competing?
Oh, that coaching was his passion. Oh, I mean, it was his everything. I mean, he loved it. He loved it. He was at Calabar every day, and like I said, he never took a dime from him. He personally told me that. He said, I don't get the check from Calabar. He left work. He worked as an insurance underwriter in National Life of Canada. I think it changed names, First Life or something like that. But he would leave and come up there with, school let out at 2:00. We'd be on. I mean, looking back now, I can't believe we're on that, warming up in full sweats in 95 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah, and waiting on Dad to come and coach. He was a brutal coach, but yeah, he loved coaching. He loved coaching. I want to go back one quick second though.
Sure.
To the crowning moment of his track career, and that's that relay leg he ran in Helsinki. He said the night before the final, they talked about how they're going to win it, or how they could win it, and they wrote down a time for each individual runner. Arthur Wint on the first leg, Les Lang, his leg, and when they added up the times, it was a world record.
Yeah.
And he said they looked at each other and said, "Damn," because they were comparing it to the other team, the U.S. team,
Mm-hmm.
and and there was some trepidation as to whether they could, because it based on their numbers, it would have to take a world record to do it,
Yeah. Yeah.
to win that race, and that was his last chance to win a gold medal. So um,
He put
the
everything
time
into
that they
it.
wrote down, that would have broken the world record is the time they ran was actually faster than the time they wrote down.
Wow. So
Yeah,
they had a time that they wanted to run.
yeah, they wrote down a time that it would take to win the race, and the time that they won the race was faster than the time they wrote down.
Wow.
So yeah, and there was a guy that wrote for the Gleaner, Baz Freckerton. Not sure what happened to Baz, but Baz came up one Sunday and was interviewing Dad, and he brought with him some photos. And man, I wish I had stolen that photo. But that photo, one particular photo, shows George Roden crossing the line, breasting the tape, and Dad in the background right there. And the look on his face, the camera stopped right then, and the look on his face was just
Wow.
genuine ecstasy, that he knew right then that he won that gold,
That he won a gold
that he
medal.
won a gold medal. He could,
Wow.
he could pack it all away, and that was it. Of course, he wanted
Awesome.
to win one individually, but yeah, that
And
was
it
it.
was
But
deserving.
going back,
It was deserving.
yeah, but it's so ironic because Daddy was a fun loving guy and he loved people. He just loved people. It's ironic that he won it as a community, of runners, as a confluence of runners, and not just an
Hmm.
individual.
Yes.
Um, that was ironic to me that he won his medal, the medal he wanted to win, the gold medal. He won it in a relay. You know.
Awesome, awesome. A lot of Olympic champions, it is through a community race that they have
Mhm.
won their
Mhm.
gold medal. The Olympic Games is so competitive that sometimes you have to team up in order to get that gold medal. And we've seen it over and over. And before we go any further, let us just welcome Aileen Bailey, who is also here with us now, Bailey Taylor. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that name, but she too credited her track and field career to your dad, because she told me that she got injured 1 year coming back from the Carifta Games and there was no support. And it was your father who made a call to a Calabar old boy, I think in Florida, and said, "Look, I have an athlete, she needs help." And that was how Aileen was able to get help. And she said that was how she was able to have a successful track and field career. So
Yeah,
your dad really loved people and he
yeah,
loved Jamaica track and field.
yeah. It was. Yeah, it's similar to the story I told you.
Yeah.
He has a way of just helping people,
Yeah.
much to the chagrin sometimes of his wife. He would bring athletes into the house to stay for weeks, months, years. I mean, and she would have to take care of them, and
Feed them and stuff.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he would just
Thank
yeah,
you
he's
very much,
he's
Mrs.
unbelievable. He
Let
tells
me
me,
just
go
Let me
ahead.
just thank Mrs. McKenley for that. Thank you very much, Mrs. McKenley. Thank you for doing that. Thank you. Go ahead, Herbie. I like that name.
Yeah, he tells me a story. One time, he was driving through either Tivoli Gardens or Trenchtown, bad part of town, um, and probably ran out of gas or something. It was late, you know, dark, and he said, "I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. This is a bad part of town." So anyway, got out the car, and he saw like 3 or 4 guys coming towards him, and this wasn't good. And one guy said, "Coach, is you that?" And he didn't know who the guy was, but the guy knew who he was, and
Indeed.
yeah, just help get him out of
Yeah.
the pickle that he was in. But
And that was all because of the person that he
yeah,
was.
and the
Yeah.
lives he influenced, the
Yes,
lives he
indeed.
influenced. Yeah,
Indeed. And it's not who you know, it's who know you. And people remember kindness. People remember kindness. And let us go back to Calabar now and coaching. Mr. McKenley would have been very instrumental, as we know, at Calabar. 1986 to 1990, Calabar won 4 championships with Daniel England, and of course, your father was very much there. But before I ask you your take on that, let us just hear what Daniel had to say about your dad.
sure.
Came to you, why Calabar? All the schools that came to you, why Calabar? Was there, what kind of story did Mr. McKinley sold to you that made you decided on Calabar?
Well, it just his appearance. It just is. It was a great statue. You know, it was like seeing a great hero in a sense, and versus just a normal regular person. Because we did get a couple of offers from different high schools, but Irv McKenley president was so gigantic.
Calabar was on fire with Mr. McKinley around.
He deserved respect. Most of my mental came from Irv McKenley. You know, he always let me visualize the race. You know, we always talk about race strategy. So it's not like we run the race blind. It's always visual, every run that we did. So that helped me in the process of even to every track meets. Once Coach Irv McKenley get a hold of you, man, he just said, listen, this is what we're going to do. Man, you know, I wish we had more Irv McKenley now and then. You know, he's the one and the only person I know that's not only demands respect, get respect based upon his character. If Irv McKenley told me to jump off a cliff, I think I would.
You know,
I'd be okay with it.
I've heard a lot of good story about Mr. Herb McKinley, and I'm going to tell a quick 30 seconds. When I interviewed Aileen Bailey told me that she have to credit her track and field career to Mr. Herb McKinley because she got injured as a junior coming back from the Carifta Games, both her and Roy Bailey, who also attended Calabar. And she said it was Mr. Herb McKinley who made a call to another Calabar old boy in Florida and got her treatment. And she said if it wasn't for Mr. Herb McKinley, she would not have had a track and field career.
Right. And that's Irv McKenley. And that's what I'm saying. It is his present, he's
a gem. He's a gem. Indeed, he is a gem. That is Daniel England, formerly of Calabar. He was made by your father.
Yeah. His, of course, I was long gone from Calabar when Dan came and did his exploits at championship. My wife went to the boys champs, I think his senior year, left me up here, and she went down there with our first child, and she was at boys champs, and she came back and told me about this guy Daniel England. And but look, all we had to do was win that first one in 76. That was the crowning moment. And you had a guy like Herb McKinley who did it in his career. Right now, he's a winning coach.
Yes.
It just so he did it on the field himself, and did it as a coach. He's gonna get talent from everywhere. That was not a hard decision for Danny England to come to Calabar. And so that legacy at Calabar, it's gonna last a long time because of
long time.
What Herb did,
A long, long time.
No question about it.
When you talk about Calabar, Mr. Herb McKenley comes to mind
Yeah,
immediately,
yeah,
instantly,
yeah. When
instantly. Before, go
when
ahead, Herbie.
one of the things, you know, he always taught us character. He always spoke about doing things right. Um, in '75, we were going to work out at the stadium, and as is the custom, we would get some old boys to come up to Calabar to drive us to the stadium, and whoever was left would take the bus. We'd take the bus from Radials Road to Halfway Tree, and then we jump on that bus there and get to the stadium. Um, this one particular day, some Calabar boys jumped on the bus, and there was an exchange with some Excelsior extension girls, and it wasn't good. It was to the point where it got back to the headmaster. It didn't look good for Calabar. It was on the news, and he called a meeting of the track team, and he gave a speech that, I mean, I remember some of these guys coming up, because I'm always, my brother and I are always used to his speeches, so we knew who, but that was the first time that he gave a speech, and it moved some of them to tears. And it was in that meeting that some of these guys realized how deep his feelings are or were for that school, and the integrity of wearing that damn epaulet on the street, and saying you're a Calabar student, you know. And
As you talk about feelings, I heard that your father loves to cry. Tell me about that.
yeah, he would cry when,
Once he gives a speech and start crying, you want to do what he says.
yeah,
Tell me a little bit about that.
yeah. I think in that speech he cried. In that speech, I remember exactly where we were. It was in a classroom. I remember the classroom. My wife and I went back to Calabar last year, and we visited the school and walked, and like a step back in time. And we walked right past that classroom where he had that meeting. And yeah, he cried, talking about, what happened in the incident, relative to how we felt about the school, and the disparity there. And it just, so yeah, he's when he talks about something that he's passionate about,
Yes.
and sometimes he's moved to tears. Yeah.
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 Indeed. Indeed.
And he had these little what we call herbisms, that he would say, like, love is a one-way street, or a man creates his own luck, things like that,
Yeah.
things he believed in to his core, that fueled him.
Your father, he was selfless. He
Yeah.
gave of himself to this sport that we love so much. I've heard many, many, many athletes talk about him. I've heard Debbie Byfield talk about him. I've heard Dorothy, Miss Vilma, Kathy, and so many athletes talk about him. And the thing about it, athletes from different generations would have interacted with him. Let us just look at some of his personal best. Daniel is asking me for the split of the relay. I'm going to give that split a little bit, but I want to test Herbie's memory before I give that out. But let us just look at some of his achievement. He had a personal best of 10.40 in the 100 meters. 200 meters 21.30, 300 meter 32.4, 400 meter 45.9, 4x4 3 minutes and 03.9 seconds. Your father, remarkable career, it has helped to lay the foundation for Jamaica track and field dominance that we are seeing now 70 plus years. What more can you say about his legacy? that I have not said? Is there anything else that you can say that I have not said?
Yeah. Personally, uh, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that growing up in his house with his name did not have an effect. Early on, I didn't know how to deal with it. Jamaicans are sometimes very cruel when they come to, at the roots level.
Yes.
You know, but I was determined to, to make a name for myself.
Hmm.
But he wouldn't give me any. He didn't give me any favors. He didn't give me. He would come home oftentimes with the track suits. I remember him coming home with the track suits that the team was going to wear to Munich. Nice, good-looking sweatsuits with Jamaica on the back in the trunk. And I said, "Hey, can I get one of these?" He said, "Are you crazy? No, you got to earn
Wow.
them. You got to earn those. You got to earn the right to put on a uniform that says Jamaica on the back."
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I couldn't even. Yeah, you can look at it, but you cannot put it on. So this is the kind of person that so yeah, it's all hard work or no favors,
Yes,
nothing.
yes,
Yeah. So I learned that
indeed.
early on, and I couldn't make I don't think I made the boys champs team in the first couple of years of high school. Uh, but I did make
Your dad would not put you on the team even if you didn't make it?
no, no, but I did make it in
I
my
like that. I
but I
like
did
that.
make it. I did make it for my final year class 3, and then every year after that, subsequent after that, to the point
No,
where
no favoritism.
no, but my final year in '76, I was I was one of the top guys in the school, if not in on the island in '76. So, and all because of him and his coaching. Um, I remember going the at the at the end of the first day in '76, the Friday night we were driving home. I had won my 200-meter heat, our semifinal, and the time I ran was slower than the guy who finished fifth in the second semifinal and got eliminated. So, I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be a doozy. So,
Yep.
but on the way home, we had a couple Olympic gold medalists in the car that were encouraging me. One of which was Donald Quarry, and Donald said, Herbie, they gave you lane 8, and lane 8 is the best lane. Of course, back then lane 8 was nobody wanted lane 8, but he told
Yes.
me, Donald Quarry told me lane 8 was the best lane. We're driving home, and he's telling me that, and Donald Quarry helped me understand that the lane in a 200, the outside lane was the best lane, and how to run it. That didn't tell me that. Donald did, but yeah, that helped me.
But Donald won from lane 1 or lane 2 in 1976.
It was an inside lane. I think it was 3 or 4, something
Yes,
like that.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was
yeah,
1 or 2 he
yeah,
won from at the 1976 games
hmm
in Canada.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's
But
one of
you
the perks of living with a guy like Herb McKenley. I mean, every weekend we'd get Olympians in our house. I mean, I grew up like
wow.
that. I grew up with
Wow.
Michael Frey, Neville Mighton, uh, Garth Case. These are guys that Leighton Priestley. These are guys that competed for Jamaica at the Olympics.
Yes, I was
Uh,
just about to
Lennox
tell you
Miller,
that
Donald
you're calling the names of some Olympians.
Yeah, I grew up. You know, um, they were there every week at our house. So yeah, it was good for me. Yeah.
Before we go any further, let us just welcome some more people. Of course, Dorothy Scott is still there, formerly of Veer Technical. Etlin Tate is still there, another Olympian, former. Very technical star girl. We also have ATJ Vibes Live. He said up and running. Thank you for being here. Yvonne Saunders, Vonnie is still there. She said, shout out to you, Beverly. Much love. And that is, of course, Mrs. McKenley. And Ethelyn Tate is also saying respect to Mrs. McKenley. Daniel England is asking for the 4x4 split.
I'm surprised
Laura
Daniel England
Bryce,
didn't know that time.
yes, Laura Price is saying Daddy's real legacy was not on the track, but his service to people and the country. God gave him
Amen.
that platform to fulfill a greater purpose. He is truly missed by his family. And I totally agree with you, Laura. And of course, we too, we miss your father, because even though I've never met him, I've seen him around, I've seen him at the stadium, but I've never met him personally. But he was someone that I really did admire as one of the greatest to have ever done it. Laura also said he always stressed to us the importance of how you treat people, treating people well. And I like that. Dorothy Scott is also saying Herb opened so many doors for Jamaica track and field. We affectionately call him Uncle Herbie. Awesome. And Tony Phillips is saying, why you wanna bust out the man's secret? Keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming. But back to Herbie. Jamaica track and field legacy, even though it started from as early back as in the 1930s, but we announced ourselves at the 1948 Olympic Games. Of course, your dad was very much there. The little country called Jamaica created history and rewrite history. To say that Jamaica track and field history is rich is an understatement. Based on your father's love for Jamaica and Jamaica track and field, how would you want us to sustain, to maintain this legacy and build on it generation and generation to come? I know that's a lot I just said.
No, it's a good question. Listen, he was instrumental in getting athletes coming out of high school to come to the United States to get their education and to compete in the NCAAs, which is the NCAAs. I think everybody will agree is a bastion of high quality athletics in whatever field it may be, basketball, track, whatever. It's where athletes from all over the world come and compete at the NCAA level and become Olympians, if not Olympic champions. So he was instrumental in opening that door for a lot of Jamaicans. Recently, in the past, 10, 15, 20 years, Jamaicans, much like Usain Bolt, Asafa Powell, and the current crop right now, to some degree, not all, are being honed at home.
Yes.
And when I say honed, I mean honed to where they're on the damn top of the podium at the Olympic Games. I mean, Shelly Ann Fraser, Usain Bolt, these guys stayed in Jamaica, and I think that's attributed to the coaching. I mean, you have some great coaches. Glenn Mills. I remember Glenn coaching Camperdown. He's a great sprint coach.
The Sprint Factory.
Yeah, even back then, Glenn Mills and his athletes loved him. He just had an easy style that enamored his athletes to him. So, yeah. But, yeah, I think that's one of the things that would have surprised him had he been around now, to see homegrown athletes like Usain Bolt, like Shelly Ann, and some of the others. And I'm just mentioning those names because
There's so many of them. So many
of them that stay at home and do their thing, So yeah, that's one of the things that I think that he would be, and
Happy
I think,
about.
yeah, happy about, because he loves Jamaica, and and everything Jamaica.
I totally agree with you. I think that's something that he would have really, really, really enjoyed seeing. I totally
Hmm. Hmm.
agree. I totally agree with you. But before we get to our next segment, which is we're almost there because this segment is about it's just some random Q&A. I'm going to test your memory a little bit to see how much you
Okay.
know about your dad's legacy, even though we've talked about some of it, but I still want to do this little quiz with you. I love to quiz people about
Okay, Heather.
our track and field. Okay. So here goes, guys. If you want to help him, you can. If your wife want to help you, she can, because I get the feeling that your wife knows a lot about track and field based on something you said earlier. But let's get into it. Which Olympic Games did your father won 2 silver medals?
52, Helsinki.
That's correct, sir. The 100 and 200. You're correct. Which event did your father won his first Olympic medal?
The 400.
Correct again. Wow.
Give me a hard one, Heather. Come on now.
I'm trying. I'm trying. How many Olympic medals are in your father's medal cabinet?
4, 3 silvers and a gold.
Wow. No. And here I am thinking that this was hard. All right, here's a hard one.
All right.
Even though I said it earlier, which leg of the 4x4 100 meter relay, the world record breaking relay, did your father run at the Olympic Games in Helsinki? Which leg of that relay he ran?
Gee, let me think.
That's the
Oh,
hard one.
third leg. The
Yes, it
third
was
leg.
the yes, it was the
Yeah.
third leg. It was the third leg. A matter of fact, your dad ran the fastest split in that entire relay. So Daniel England, who was asking for the split was 45.1 was the split. 45.10 was the split, and he ran the fastest
Heather, I
split.
think you got that wrong.
What was it?
It was 44.6.
44.6. Wow.
Yeah, it was 44.6.
I'll have to go back and check my source,
Yeah,
but I'll take
yeah,
that. I'll take
yeah.
that.
44.6.
Wow. Interesting. So, Daniel, the split was
I'm surprised Daniel
44,
didn't know that.
44.6. So, let me just put it right here, 44.6, because I have 45.1. But thank you very much for that correction there. Next question. Mr. McKenley created history by being a part of 2 Quinellas for Jamaica. Which of those 2 athletes ran the anchor leg on the 4x4 winning team?
George Roden.
George Roden is
Mhm.
correct. Before we go any further, let's see what Laura is saying. Laura is saying Herbie is the best when it comes to track stats. Wow, he's been doing it. He's been doing it about from he was 8. Wow.
I don't know about that, but
Wow. Well, Laura said you're the best, and I'm going to hold her to it because you just give me some updated information for that split. And she said you're the best. He used to correct daddy as well. Wow. So I can work with that.
yeah.
Your father, Mr. McKenley, of course, ran 4 events at the 1952 Olympic Games. What were the 4 events?
Okay, Heather. He only ran 3 events. I heard you mention earlier in the podcast
4.
that he ran. No, he didn't run the 200.
But I saw information that he was eliminated in the semifinal. I can send it to you.
Yeah,
Unless my
please.
unless my source is wrong,
I
but
don't think I don't think he ran the 200. I don't think.
yeah.
No, I know he ran the 200 in the 48 Olympics, and he finished fourth in that race. He made the final. He's the only
Okay.
man to make the final of the 1, 2, and 4 in the Olympic Games, but he didn't do it in the same Olympics. He only ran
All right.
two
I'll
two
go
individual
back.
races and the relay.
Okay, I'll check it and send it to you because I saw something that says he is the only person at an Olympic Games to run the sprints and the 400 meters.
Yeah,
That was what
he didn't run the deuce in 52.
he didn't run it in 52.
No,
Okay,
no,
okay,
no.
okay.
Listen, to run each race has 3 or 4 rounds.
Four,
Yeah.
four
So
rounds back
he,
then. Back
no,
then.
yeah, no, no. You'd have to be Michael Johnson cubed to do that.
Yeah, you see,
Yeah,
sometimes when you're doing research, there's so much information out there, and everybody is writing something.
yeah.
So
No, that's
sometimes you
yeah,
have to. But I'm glad that you corrected me because I did saw that he ran the 1, 2, and 4, and he was eliminated in the 2 in the semifinal. But thank you very much
yeah.
for that correction. Okay, my next question is what was the format of the relay? We talked about it earlier of the relay from start to finish. Who ran what leg?
You mean the 52
52, yes,
team? Yeah.
52.
Arthur Wynn started the race. Um, Les Lang ran the second leg, Herb McKenley the third, and George Roden the anchor leg.
That's correct. That is correct. Again, I have this thing going on where during my research, I'm trying to find two very important bit of information: the parish that the athlete is from, and also the high school that they went to. Your father was born in Clarendon. Of course, he moved to Kingston very early in his life. Which parish should claim your father as their Olympian?
I would say Clarendon.
Clarendon.
Yeah, I would
I,
say
I
Clarendon.
I agree with
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I would
And
say Clarendon.
that's his original roots. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Was your father a strict man?
I hate to say this, but he had some rules that he would say he believed in them, and he would say, "But listen, don't do as I do, do as I say."
Amen. Amen.
I guess he wanted us to keep within the reins of until we were mature enough to understand.
Yes.
You know, if you know, in Jamaica, there's a term "force ripe."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those are the people who bite off more than they could chew earlier in life, and they
Yeah.
don't, they don't. So I guess he was trying to keep us within certain moral and ethical boundaries
Mm-hmm.
in earlier in our lives, so that we could understand more about life until we got to manhood.
Yep.
Talking about myself and Michael, my brother.
And
He
that is
was
smart.
tough on us. Yeah, he was tough on us. So yeah, to answer your question, he was strict to a certain level. Yeah, yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
Mhm.
I love to ask this question. Parents who play sports many times try to influence their children to do the same. Did your dad ever do that to you guys, or you
No,
choose to do sports on your own?
I chose it. I mean, I chose to run because of his. He just they're just being around him, being around these track athletes. Um, um,
You're inspired.
yeah, in my thing grew in when he came back from Mexico City in '68. He brought me a pair of spikes, and that was my first spikes. I remember it to this day. And he when he, I mean, I put them things on the minute I had and ran in the back in the yard. So yeah, it was not difficult to choose track, having a guy like that for your dad, and being around all those famous athletes every day.
Your dad is smart. Your dad is a smart man.
Yeah.
He did not have to tell you to do track. He just gave you a pair of spikes.
Yeah.
He's a he was a smart man.
Yeah.
What was his favorite food?
Oh, steak.
Wow.
You know steak. Yeah, you know steak. Um,
Did
medium well, I think.
medium rare or something like that they
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah.
Did he have a favorite genre of music or a favorite song? What was his favorite song or music?
I Did It My Way by Frank Sinatra.
Wow. Your dad. Yep. I did it my way. Interesting. Interesting. I did it my way. What was his favorite thing to do when he wasn't doing track and field business?
Uh, he liked jazz music. He would hang out. He had a hell of a LP collection. He would hang out with his friends sometimes. On a Sunday, Basil Keane, who was the captain of the Calabar, up until that time, was the team that won the soccer championship, was a good friend of his, a dentist. He would come up there, and some other people that were not associated directly with track, that were good friends of his. That he would hang out with them, and he loved jazz music, and yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Did your father have a favorite athlete? Who was his favorite athlete?
Uh, he never spoke about it, but he loved Merlene Ottey. I mean,
Who wouldn't
Merlene,
love Merlene Ottey?
loved Merlene. Merlene stayed at our house in our early days. So yeah, and I mean, he put Merlene up for years. So yeah,
Merlene. Wow.
I would, that I don't know for
Yes.
sure, but just based on that right there, I would say.
Mm, awesome. Awesome. Which track and field event was his favorite? I know what you're going to tell me, but I'm asking anyway.
I mean, yeah, it's the 400. I mean, listen,
400.
the 400, the science about it, the physiology. It's the only race where you have to run it in such a way that last 50 meters, let me put it this way. It's the only race where deceleration is so prominent in the last, say, 50 meters. When you run the first 350 meters like a madman, and then it's just who is slowing down the least in the last 50. It's not who is running the fastest, it's who is slowing down the least. So it's a man's race. I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna hurt if you run that race right. You're gonna hurt, and he
Yeah.
would preach that. He would tell you that. So listen, he'd tell you up front. Yeah, I think you're a great 400-meter, but let me tell you what you're in for. You're gonna have to train hard, and you're gonna hurt.
Wow.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you would like to share with us about your dad's legacy that we did not touch on? Because you have shared a lot tonight, and I've seen a lot of people writing it on the platform that they did not know this or they did not know that, and I did not know because I grew up while growing up I used to hear about Mr. Herb McKenley, but tonight to be hearing about his story intimately, it is refreshing. And the part I love the most is the way he loved people, he loved his country, and he loved our sport. I love that. about him. And I saw that for myself. And when I talk to athletes, your father name is always coming up. Always, always. Is there anything else that you can share about his legacy? So for people who will be watching this later on or next week, they can learn about this man who created history for Jamaica.
Uh, just his influence on me personally. Um, you know, I told you the story about the sweatsuit, and I was determined to make the best of my opportunity and to represent him. It was to represent that name. You know, I hear the stories of guys calling me names. You can't run like your father. You can't, you know, you can't run like I mean that
Yeah.
it was not easy. It was not easy. But
Wow.
I put, and it was, listen, like I said, he encouraged, but he didn't give me any favors. Um, but at the end of my high school career, because of him, I made the Currita team and got that sweatsuit. So,
Work for
just-
it.
yeah, work for it. That's his motto. There's one thing science hadn't figured out is how to replace hard work. That's one of his little isms too. Hard work cannot be replaced.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
How proud are you to call this man father?
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. You know, kind of torn because uh, I don't want to sound. I mean, it's his legacy. It's not mine.
No, it's fine, and it's
Yeah,
fine. It's okay.
I'm just in the vortex of it,
Yeah, it's
and
okay. And you're a part of it. You're a part of his legacy.
I
It's
appreciate the
okay.
opportunity today. So, but yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. I was the one who when he got inducted into the Illinois Hall of Fame, that was the inaugural class, by the way. So there are some pretty famous names on that list that he's
Wow.
among. He's among. University of Illinois is a storied university that has long achievement, and he was in that first class. So I was there to receive the honor for him. So yeah, I mean, just what he has done and achieved, I'm kind of seeing it and being a part of it, and it's it's not mine, it's his. But nevertheless, I'm experiencing some of what he did. You know,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed, indeed. His legacy is unmatched. That I can tell you. His legacy is very unique, very, very unique. And we will forever miss him. I mean, his name comes up in track and field discussion so often, so very, very often. And with that said, I'm going to play another clip from Daniel England. But before I do that, um, I just want to say thanks to everyone who joined us tonight. And, there are some people who are still here. Yvonne Saunders, Bonnie M is saying, thank you for representing the McKenley family, Herbie. He would have been very, very proud indeed. She's also saying, this is so amazing to hear from these legends. Of course, we need to hear from them, and that is so true. Regina Montague is saying, great interview, everyone. Thank you for being here, Laura and everyone. So I'm going to play this clip from Daniel and, just to hear something else about your father. And also, after that, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask me. Normally, I give my guest an opportunity to ask me one question. But if you ask me a certain question, I'll give you two. If you ask me the right question, I'll give you one. So before we get to that, let us just hear what Daniel had to say, a little bit more about what Daniel had to say.
His present, his that's what I'm saying. His present, his
He's a gem. He's a gem.
is like I said, he's Jamaican.
Yeah.
He's Jamaican. Like I said, he helps everybody at a place called Central Arizona College. A lot of relationship between the coach there and McKenley. So a lot of Calabar kids go to there.
Your coach, Mr. Herb McKinley,
Right.
he saw that
Exactly.
you were better suited for that event, and he groomed you for that event, and
Right.
you were successful at it.
I've been around Herb McKenley most of my life. I never see Herb McKenley took $1 out of his pocket and give it to someone.
He called people.
You know what he did? He said, "Hey, Mr. Thomas, come here. This young man need a ride home. Can you take him home?" "Sure, Herb McKenley." Fine. Kid come, "Sir, I'm hungry." "You hungry? Hold on one second. Hey, Mr. Thomas, I'm sending Daniel down to your restaurant. All right, Mr. Hart. I'm sending Daniel down to the restaurant. Make sure you get some food."
Amazing. Amazing. The stories. The stories. Your dad was someone special, a special Jamaican, a Jamaican who has led the path for many, 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 many. He has done well. He is truly a gem. That's what I call our athletes. I call them the Jamaican gems. He is certainly a gem. He is. So with that said, you can ask me your question. If you ask me a question that I've never heard before,
Yeah.
fine. But if you ask me that question that I keep hearing, I'll give you another question. So shoot.
Well, I think you're doing a great work here with the podcast.
Thank
and
you.
Yeah, to elevate even more track and field in Jamaica. So my question, Heather, is what was your inspiration for this very creative and informative podcast? That's my question.
Okay, that's your question. I'm going to give you another question. So while I answer, you can think about that because I get this question a lot. And believe me, I like it. My inspiration to do this podcast and to do it in the format that I'm doing it in is because I'm a track and field fanatic. And there are a lot of our athletes that Jamaica, we don't know anything about. We don't know. We just know that they run for the country and they retire, and that's it. So when I came up with this idea during the pandemic, I said I need to do something because I'm getting bored. And I said I'm going to do, because when I initially wrote this program for television back in Jamaica in 2014, but I could not get it on television because obviously I did not know anybody. And even though I wanted to pitch the idea, nobody would listen to me. So when I was doing my master's in sport management, my professor, who is my academic advisor, he said, all of us need to come up with an original brand. There should not be anything like it out there and stuff. And I think about it and I said, I have this in my vault, and I pitch it in a class. And he said, if you cannot get it on television, tweak it for YouTube or online, because a lot of things were happening online. And I went through and I modified it and I said, okay, I'm going to do it on. And then I decided what angle I wanted to take it from. And I said, you know something? I want the athletes to tell their story.
Yeah, it's great.
And there are so many of our athletes who competed for the country, did well, and we never hear from them again. And that was why I decided that I was going to take it from the angle. So it is really to highlight people like your father who have done a tremendous job for us and putting Jamaica. I mean, I did my master's overseas, and every time I go to a class, I was asked, why does Jamaicans run so fast? And they asked me, can every Jamaican run? So,
Something in water.
yes, we are all over. And this that I'm doing is actually my tribute to all the athletes, is to say thank you to all the athletes, to have them come tell their story and people know who they are. Even if you've heard the name, you know who they are. So my motivation was really to know more about our athletes. And of course, Daniel England is one of those athletes who I used to pine over, because when Daniel was competing for Calabar, I was in high school, so I was one of his groupies.
Yeah.
I was one of those people who would go to chants and cheer for this Daniel England, who did not know me any at all. And now today, he is a very good friend of mine through this podcast. So that was my motivation. So I'm going to give you another question.
Okay, when in your track career, what was your event?
My event was a sprint, but I preferred the 200 meters. There was something about running the curve that I like.
Okay.
So it was actually the
So
sprints. I
you're a
love.
sprinter.
Yes, I was a sprinter, but I fancy the 200 meters more.
Good.
Thank you, sir. And Daniel is back, and Tammy and Herb is saying, good job, honey. I'm proud of you. Thank you very much, Tammy and
My
Herb,
wife.
for.
That's my wife.
Oh, that's your wife. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mrs. McKenley, for lending him to us tonight to tell this great story about his father's legacy. Tony Phillips is saying, tell him you used to run too. Okay, yes, he knows that. Daniel is saying, big gratitude to the McKenley family for sharing this amazing human being to Jamaica and the world. God bless Jamaica all the way. I totally agree. This man on my screen, Herb Senior in the back looking over us. He has done wonders for Jamaica, not just on the track, but off the track. He was a Jamaican at heart, and he loved the sport, and he helped so many, so many, so many athletes. And for that, we are grateful. So, Herbie, I just want to thank you and your family, and Mrs. McKinley, who is watching, the widow of the great Mr. Herb. Thank you very much, Mrs. McKinley, for putting up with him when he brought in all the athletes for you to care for. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. Reimar's track club in St. Mary's saying, big up, sir, and great interview. Thank you very much, Herbie, for being here. And thank you for being so receptive when I reached out to you. It did not take you a minute to get back to me. And I know that you are definitely a McKinley, because that was all I heard that your father was. He was there to help, And thank you. And I also want to thank the Wint, Mr. Arthur Wint's family, who was also watching. And thank you. Thank you.
It was fun. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. It was. And guys, thank you all for hanging out with Herbie and myself. Lilith Hodges is saying, I can honestly say Uncle Herbie gave back to Jamaica great legacy. Indeed, he did. He did. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. And join me next week when we will be back here with another Olympian, a two-time Olympian, Jamaican Olympian, who now lives in Canada. He will be here next week to tell us his story. I won't tell you who he is. You'll have to be here to know who it is. But thank you, guys. Thank you all for being here. And thank you, Mrs. Herbie. Thank you very much. Is that her in the background?
Yes.
Thank you Mrs. Herbie. Let me see your face. Thank you very much for sharing your husband with us tonight. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Herbie. Have a good night.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Guys, thank you so much once more. It is indeed awesome. And, I've been looking forward to this interview for a long, long time. And of course, it was supposed to be last week, but Hurricane Milton said not this week. And, I have to say that Herbie, before I reached out to him to let him know that we might have to postpone, he called me up and he said, Heather, how you doing in the hurricane and what do you want to do? And we decided to postpone to this week because my Wi-Fi was fluctuating because of the hurricane and the light was going on and off. So we decided, and we're here tonight to celebrate Mr. Herb McKenley, a great one of the greatest to have done it for Jamaica. And we love him very much. And, we in the track and field world, especially, and his family and his friends will miss him greatly. And we will continue to have conversation about this great, handsome man, call himself Mr. Herbert McKenley, aka Herb. Thank you all for being here, and I will catch you guys next week, same time. And you all take care now. Bye.
We're running it all the way, we're in the lead. We're running it, finish line is all I see. Get up on, no, don't stop. Future bright, the vibes nice, oh gosh. No time for slow down, just sprint, can't lapse. We walk the talk, just ask me both tracks. So come through, let's talk about it, what you say? Oh. Your girl HP is on her mark, so get set ready.
On your mark, set, go.
Oh yeah, make we chat about it. What the fastest? Make we chat about it. Or on left, make we chat about it. Check and feel at the topic. Oh, make we chat about it. Latest news, make we chat about it. All your views, make we chat about it.
Track and feel chat, I say. With the girl HP.